Hello, everybody. My name is Delaney Warren, and I have chosen the attachment theory for my creative project. The attachment theory was created by both John Baldley and Mary Ainsworth. Mary Ainsworth kind of continued the project for the creative theory and took on some of Baldley's ideas, but they both kind of put in their inputs to the theories. They were both inspired by Freud's discoveries in developmental psychology and attachment theories. The attachment theory was created by utilizing etiology, um, developmental psychology, and information processes techniques. Ainsworth's ideas of attachment has helped create the idea that attachment is the base from which children will use to discover the world around them. And we can see that in future generations when children aren't able to attach to their partners, when adults aren't able to attach to relationships. So the idea of attachment theory really is important, especially in today's world where we live off the computers. There are three types of attachment There are three types of attachment that are described in the attachment theory. The first type is ambivalent attachment. This form of attachment happens when the parents do not satisfy the needs of their child. So, for example, if a mother or a father are absent from the child's life, like let's say that the mother has an addiction problem and the child may be hungry and crying for its mother, but the mother is busy doing something else, then the child will learn that the mother is not a stable caregiver and will not likely attached to the mother as well. These types of attachment leaves the baby kind of devastated and cries for long periods of time because its needs aren't being met. And the child may not rely on the caregiver for their basic needs like being changed, being fed. The second form of attachment includes avoidant attachment. Avoidant attachment is when the child may be more willing to attach with strangers or with people that aren't the child's caregivers. So, for example, if the child is more willing to attach to like an aunt or an uncle or than to its own parents, then the child may have avoidant attachment. This type of attachment was described by Baldley as being rare in her studies. Avoidant attachment is when the child may be more willing to attach to strangers with people that aren't the child's caregiver. The final form of attachment style described by Ainsworth is secure attachment. This form of attachment is common, and you can find this form of attachment within, I believe it was 80% or 90% of the population. This is when the child is attached to the caregiver and feels like their needs will be met for them. So a good way to help form better attachment styles with your children or with your babies is breastfeeding. Ainsworth and Baldley have found that breastfeeding is one of the most positive ways to form a good attachment with with children. So let's get to my creative piece. So I created attachment under the sea. I know, it's so cute. Uh, so the first form of attachment that I described is ambivalent attachment. And as you can see, the starfish is looking sad. So in this picture, you can notice the two parent starfish are talking to each other and ignoring the baby starfish. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but the baby is crying and making it known to the parents and caregivers that they need something, that the baby either needs to be fed or needs to be changed, but the parents are too busy basically ignoring the child, which then it would develop ambivalent attachment. All right, the second type of attachment is avoidant attachment. And I drew the lovely starfish child looking up. And in the picture diagram that I drew to describe this form of attachment is the parents are trying to get the attention of the baby, but the baby is too focused in on the goldfish, and the goldfish is kind of a representative of another adult that the baby starfish is trying to like form a better connection with, but the parents are still kind of sad that the baby doesn't want to form it with them. And then the final type of attachment is secure attachment, and as you can see, the starfish is pretty happy. And in the final drawing, I have a happy family that looks like they are all securely attached to each other. The needs of the baby have been met. So one happy family. So that's my book. I have chosen the attachment theory because I have always been interested in learning about children and why they attach to people. I've always been interested in learning why babies, specifically babies, attached to certain caregivers. I've always noticed that like when I take care of babies, they always just want the mother or the father. They never want, like, they're interested in me, but not as interested as their, mom and dad. It has always interested me to learn about the different studies that developmental psychologists have done. I have always been interested in different studies that psychologists have done, and it's really fascinating to read Bodley's and Ainsworth studies that they've done in Africa. And I think it's really interesting to read the different, cultural differences in attachment too. I think that's the most interesting because, attachment in American society and westernized societies are different than in Africa, where they're from. And I always found it really interesting to study these topics. Yeah, so I chose the attachment theory because I just have always been interested in learning about why people attach. And I'm also very interested in learning more about the attachment theory, then moved on to middle school aged children. I have done my internship at the Lewiston Middle Schools, and I've worked as a school counselor for the school counselor that had to take maternity leave. And I can tell you that it's interesting to view the different people that have been, that are significantly attached to their parents versus the children who are not, and to view the different just social cues that they put out. And I've just always been interested in studying this topic. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope you guys had a great semester.